Hello and welcome back to episode 8 of Urban Informatics over coffee, and we are back to 3ds Max and working with large site meshes. You would have seen me generate one of these in episode 2 of this series where we used Blossom, a plugin for Blender, to generate this, and then we imported it into 3ds Max. So get nice and cozy with your warm cup of coffee, enjoy it while it lasts because we're about to head into summer, and let's start. So in 3ds Max, I have my imported mesh. And if you try to do anything to this mesh, like manipulate it or boolean it or anything like that, even add a shell so it has a thickness to it, it'll crash your computer. And that is even with this lower resolution mesh from Google Earth. But I need to edit this for my site model. So the way I got around the fact that it's too big and crashes my computer is I found that I could just cut out the bits that I need and then manipulate them. So I have my full context, which is just the mesh as it is, and I'm going to clone it and then work from that one. So in the modifier list, just under editable mesh, I'm going to select element, and if I press on the mesh, it's not one continuous object, like it is broken down into pieces. So if this is my site here, I'm just going to start by deleting everything but that site. And as we get closer to the actual site, we can switch to face or polygon, and that'll pick up smaller groups that we can delete. Okay, that's probably close enough for that. So now that this is small enough that my computer could probably handle it, I'm going to get rid of all the fluff on this surface, try and smooth it out as much as I can, and then turn it into an editable terrain piece that I can edit. So I'm going to keep going with deleting all this unnecessary polygons. And I found that a lot of the bumpy stuff, like this rail piece here, if you delete it, it's still got a relatively flat terrain under it. So if I delete all this and I just have the big polygons, these ones here, that is actually the terrain or the surface, and I can delete all these extra polygons on top, it'll be a lot easier to work with. So I'm going to go around and do that now. Now that I've gotten rid of the main bulk of stuff using the selection tool element, I'm still going to have to go in and use the face tool to get rid of all this stuff. And you might have seen as well that I was using the backdrop of the red to pick up the little elements that were sitting in front of it. So now I know that this is one piece of mesh, well, at least one piece of connected mesh. It kind of doubles over itself, hence why I can keep simplifying it. So I'm going to keep going again, and hopefully soon I'll have a flat piece of terrain to work with. Okay, I'm now pretty happy that I got all the nonsense off. So we're getting close now. You might have seen that I was dragging my selection tool from left to right, and that means I picked up everything that was wholly contained within my selection tool. So the base pieces are fairly large triangles, hence why I could easily drag my mouse over it, delete what was on top. And if I did pick up the triangle, it was easy to tell most of the time, and I can just shift-click to deselect that triangle and then delete the rest of it. So it didn't take too long. But now as well, the back side of this mesh is a bit strange. you can see it has a grid structure, so Google must upload all their tiles in a grid-like format, and that means there's these extra bits of mesh underneath that also need to be deleted. And the easiest way I found to do that was to make sure you're in orthographic instead of perspective when you're doing this, and then just go to the front and you can see kind of where the grid is. So if I do my left-right selection just over the grid, it'll select that entire row pretty easily. So I'm just going to keep doing that for all the grids, and I'll check back in when I'm done. Okay, I think I'm done. It is quite a holy mesh at the moment. Like, there's gaps where the meshes don't quite align, and I deleted those pieces, but it shouldn't really matter with what we're going to do now. And that is, we are going to first duplicate this again. So I'm going to clone, create a copy. Okay, and I'm going to hide the original one. So the purpose of this mesh will be to kind of bridge the gap between the main full context when we get around to editing that and the site hole we're going to create. It'll make sense when I show you at the end. So we're going to create a hole for where our site's going to go. I'm in top view and I'm just going to create a line. And I'm going to draw where our site is around the edges. And I want to close the spline. This is the outline of our site. So now I'm going to select that, go into the modifier line, and I'm going to add the modifier turn to poly, which turns it into a surface. I'm going to add another one, and I'm going to use the beloved shell modifier to turn it into a solid. So I'm going to give it 50 meters and then move it so it's in all instances of the mesh. Go back to the mesh, and we're going to add a boolean. And we're going to subtract this shape in the middle, so there is a mesh with a hole in the middle. And the computer did not freak out or crash because now our mesh is considerably more simple. So now with that done, I'm going to pocket this away for later and go back to our full context site. I'm going to take out a hole in the middle of this so we can slot in our site. So I'm just going to go through and delete around the site with a bit of overlap. So you'll see what I mean at the end. Okay, I think that's probably enough. So now that my site has a hole, I'm going to unhide my smaller mesh with a hole in it. And you can see it's a lot more clean. I may have missed a bit here, but it's fine. It's nice and clean with the site hole. So I'm going to unhide those now and bring back this guy. We're going to add a few modifiers. The first one is vertex weld. Increase the threshold, just to try and fix some of those holes and make it, again, a bit more of a simple mesh. And we're going to see if we can shell what we have now. We're going to fix this so the bottom extrudes and not the top. Wonderful, and it looks quite clean on top, actually. So now if we bring back the other things that we made, so the full context with a hole, our smaller context with a hole, and now if we drop in the guy that we just made, so now we have a solid portion of this too large mesh that we couldn't edit before, and now we can edit this guy. So now if I add an edit poly and I go down to paint deformation and I make it pretty big, not 500, just 50, thank you. I can now edit this terrain without crashing my computer, which was the goal. And of course you can use Boolean on this shape to make cut and unions and whatnot while leaving the rest of the site untouched. I love that my river can not be flat. But this is it for this video. I was really just trying to, it was more like a, what do you call them? If you have an unmanageable site context in your model, but you still want to be able to manipulate your site within its context. So I hope this helps, and hopefully it can give you ideas about how you can troubleshoot your own problems that may or may not be similar to this one. But I'll leave you there. Enjoy your coffee once again. Catch you in the next one. Bye.